to chat with you. So why don't you kick it off and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Ooh, all right. So I've been in the sports industry since like 2012, I guess. I started in ticket sales, training. Major League Soccer had a really cool training center. It was based in Minnesota. Like, you had to submit an elevator pitch, like a minute elevator pitch on why you'd want to get in. And I remember doing it one time, like a few years before, and I got denied. And then I did it again, and then I got accepted, went through that interview process. So they only at that time, they only had chosen 10 people to do the program. And it's about maybe 3 months, maybe a little less. And then you are intensively trained in ticket sales. Every week is a different team. So the whole goal was to shorten the ticket sales process. So to shorten the cycle. I mean, I would have leads. It was so funny because the group of people that I've met we still talk to this day. So I love it. And anybody in inside sales, I'm always like, those are your people. Like, keep them. And like, that's who you're going to grow with and really see where they go later on in life. But we would make over 150 to 200 calls a day. We were in there at 7 a.m., sometimes not leaving till like 7 or 8 at night. And we did different teams every week. So I think one week was Vancouver. Funny enough, we were selling to Vancouver during Thanksgiving. Canadians don't celebrate Thanksgiving, and all of us were there, so we're not like going home for Thanksgiving. So we're working during. It was just an odd experience, but it was one that I'll always remember. So I started there, then went to Kansas City. I'm a Jersey girl. Never thought that I'd live in the Midwest at all, nor had I been there. So moved to Kansas City, worked with Sporting KC, was in ticket sales, started there, then went through to partnership sales. So I did sponsorship sales there. And then I ended up managing the premium team and all of the premium inventory. And then I went to Barclays Center Brooklyn Nets, which was a cool experience because it's all events. We did hockey, basketball, boxing, concerts. Michelle Obama is my favorite whenever. And then I took time off. I left there and was on my own, not knowing that the pandemic was going to hit and kind of shift my whole life, but really focused on content because learning sponsorships and ticket sales and the fan experience is just the biggest thing why people go to events. And I really think that was one thing that I wanted to dive in more was that experience and how you can monetize the content there. And then so I did that in my time off, I guess between jobs, and then so picking up freelance work. And then now the Clippers reached out to me. This is, I guess the beauty of it is the guy who reached out to me was somebody who I interviewed with in 2015, not necessarily with him, but he was at the Dolphins and we had lunch and he was in that group of people that I had lunch with. So he remembered me from 2015. Reached out to me asking, hey, I'm building a team. Would you be interested? And I was like, okay, tell me more. Obviously, a new venue is like a dream to work on. And so went through a 6-week interview process and now I'm moving to LA with the Clippers. I've been working with them now since March. So the ability to work from home was nice.
That's well, congratulations. And what's really interesting, and I think it's something that we should really emphasize, is the fact that you met him how many years ago and he remembered you. So was you said he wasn't the hiring manager, but was he part of the group that you had to interview with?
Not necessarily. So I think at the time he was more on the group side, but he was on the management team. So they were just fielding out the candidates that they were interviewing with. And I didn't get the job with the Dolphins at that time, but he remembered me. And I think him and I ran into each other at an event, a conference that everybody goes to years later. And we just said hi cordially. But yes, I think the pandemic and having my freelance work along with this just really made me appreciate the value of your network. And also meeting somebody once, and maybe you don't talk to them for years, it's still okay to reach out years later. It is totally fine. They will probably remember you, bring up something in that conversation, and it will ignite it. So I've definitely realized that.
That's great. And I love that story because, part of many of these conversations, we talk about networking and the importance and the power of your network. So that's actually congratulations. And also congratulations because your team made the playoffs.
Oh my gosh. So I was in LA and I was able to go to all the playoff games. So I was so excited. And it was a game 7. So the whole series was nail biter, but we're so excited with the Lakers out and now we're the team that's in. I didn't realize how big of a competition the teams were. There's some Lakers fans who hate the Clippers, and then there's some Lakers fans who are just Kobe's fans and they don't really like LeBron. So it's a weird mix in LA. So getting to learn that was cool.
Wow, and you're going to like a whole new basketball culture because LA is, synonymous with Kobe, right?
Yes. Yeah. And you could see that once you land, like if you go to LA, Kobe's everywhere. And rightfully so. I think that's like no disrespect. There's such an admiration for him there. And on all sides of it. As for the Clippers, what I love about the Clippers, I don't know if you know, Gillian Zucker, she's the president of the business ops. So for our side, I was so excited to work under a woman. I had never in my life in sports. So I was like, whoa, this is amazing. And so I think that's the other piece that's really different. And what I'm seeing the Clippers do and her leading the charge and really making everybody think a bit differently as we're going out, reaching out to folks. And along with just the marketing, the messaging, you could definitely see her touch on things.
Yeah, well, congratulations again on landing the job with the Clippers, but also Gillian is only one of 4 women in the entire NBA who holds her position. So at anyone, to echo your sentiment, anyone who works under her leadership is experiencing a different side of sports, right? Because it's a woman at the helm and not a man. So that's awesome.
Yes. Awesome. And the other thing I appreciate too is everybody who I work with, it's just, I don't know why, maybe it's the time, but they're really wanting to know our thoughts. I work with one other woman on my team and they're curious to see how we think, how we would handle things. And I'm like, wow, I've never felt this way before. So it's so nice to have that dialogue and context with your colleagues.
That's great. Now, how large is your team?
We're a team of 6.
6. Okay.
Yeah. And specifically just for the new venue. So the venue is, it's not going to open till 2024. And our team right now, like we haven't even built the experience center. We haven't broke ground yet. There's a lot of things that are still hush hush. I mean, I can't really say much, but I definitely could say that. So, there's a lot of things that we're excited about, but we have started our outreach process as well to try to get people in early.
That's amazing. So started off in sales, inside sales. I have to ask about your time in the Midwest. What was that at Midwest?
It was like a special place in my heart now. I was there for 5 years. Never thought, originally I was like, go there for 3. First year, learn. Second year, crush it. Third year, master it, then leave. That was my goal. And it was very East Coast mentality. Now I'm learning all the different mentalities. But I really loved it because the organization wanted me to succeed. Like they wanted me to grow. They wanted to teach me. I was obviously hungry because I wanted to learn more, and they saw that and acknowledged it. So that's one thing that I really appreciated. Kansas City is like the smallest market in sports. So, and I was in Major League Soccer. But we were very feisty. Like our brand was on one of the sexiest brands, the most innovative brands. Our jersey sales were always at the top. So we had, a really good product to sell at that time. And Kansas City in general is, I forgot who said this, but, that there's a chip on their shoulder. So, my first year, we won the MLS Cup champion. That was intense. My first year there was like, we win the championship. I have a ring. I'm like, what, this is first year in sports. Like, this is how you do this. But definitely not the case. Cause when I went to the Nets, I realized something different, but now they're great, But it was a great experience, very humbling too, not moving to a place where you don't know anybody. I think that was something that like betting on yourself, and why throughout this whole process too, like I really wanted to bet on myself. I realized that I could make something of myself in a place that I know nobody. And they were very receptive to it as long as I was willing to learn and continue to stay open-minded. That was the beauty of Kansas City.
Yeah, I love that. So talking about betting on yourself, you decided to leave the Nats, you took a break, and you started to explore digital and the digital content. Talk to us about that and the importance of digital now in the sales landscape, and also how should we be thinking about monetizing content?
Yeah, I see this like even now with the Clippers too, but when I was in sponsorships and at the Nets, I did sponsorships and premium sales because it was kind of mixed with both. But I started realizing that teams were kind of adding in digital, right? They weren't really like making it like the only thing. And I was like, man, this is like, you're getting thousands of impressions and you're just like, oh, here's an add-on just so you can get the landmark, right, at a higher price. So I started seeing that, and then I wanted to learn it. So I really dove into it. I took courses during my time off, and because my goal was to get into media sales, and learning that for them, digital content was really big and growing. And because a lot of my clients when I was at the Nets were all media, and I was like, I was trying to learn their avenue. So I started doing freelance for the Girl Mob, which was great, and then I did some work with the Gist too, like we collaborated there, and it was, you just realize how much more it's turnkey. So you might do like 3-month deals, not like year long. And I think that's where the difference and discrepancy is with sports, because you're looking at long-term deals. So they're not going to see the value of digital in these short-term stints. Where in media companies, they're looking to flip 3 to 6 months, like content or product, or series. And that's what I started realizing was, wow, if you can create stuff and really just have it segmented at just content, you only have to do 3 to 6 months, a series or something that's specifically on your web page, and then flip it and turn it. And you can get a new brand every time, but it's a faster sale. But it's also, you need to have that pipeline full, but you can, depending on impressions, depending on, the reach that you can grab, you can definitely monetize that to a high extent. And that's where I think sports, what they realized during the pandemic is what they could do with it. But the other thing was, in sports, the leagues do have a little bit more ownership of a lot of digital content than the teams themselves.
Yeah. So
there is a tricky part there, because with the one idea that I had with the just being in premium is the experience, and going back to that, and now we're seeing like NFTs and all this fun stuff. But if you can capture what it's like for one of our premium clients to go to a suite, to have that experience, to be with their client, and like, for example, Game 7, right? If they were in a suite with their top client and we win Game 7, like where were they with their client when that bucket dropped? If we can capture that in suites, I think that that's an amazing piece of content that we can then flip and sell to our premium holders and just their guests. And it's a memorial piece, but it also, the other side too is concerts, the same situation. You really, like, we would, at the end of the day, you want people to watch and enjoy it. So let's take the phones away from them and do it ourselves.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a good way to look at it, right? Because everyone has their phones in their hands and they want to share their experience, but they're not living in the moment. So that's a good concept. I love that. So it's
one day.
Well, you know what? It's interesting when you talk about media companies and you talk about content. I think one of the media companies who actually really bubbled up to the top during the pandemic was ESPN, right? 24-hour live network, sports, and there were no sports. So the fact that they were able to fast track The Last Dance and some of their other programming was brilliant, I think, on their part. So,
agreed. And they're one of my biggest clients when I was at the Nets too. So the content was the biggest thing for them. And even when they did a deal with us, it was about how can we capture the content with these people in our suites. So it was that's where like all this is generating. I'm like, if they're thinking that way, we should be already thinking that way.
Yeah, you should. Yeah, we should. You know, from especially from the experience, you should definitely be one step ahead. So yeah. So how do you think in your new role with the Clippers, how were you guys thinking? So content is one way of enhancing the experience, but what other things are you guys thinking about?
I know, it's like, what can I say? What can I say? There's this arena, and Steve Ballmer is our owner. So, and like, I guess his Microsoft background, right? Tech background. He wants to reimagine the event experience. I can say what he's been quoted at. He wants to create the best basketball experience in the world. So, from my experience at Sporting KC when I was in Kansas City, the design of that stadium was all about acoustics and how, if you've been to an MLS game, supporter sections are really big, right? That rowdiness, that fan. So how do we get that sound to go throughout the whole stadium? And that's a similar thing with Steve. Like, how this is the first time the Clippers are going to have home court advantage. Like, that's insane. Like, they've never had a home of their own. This is all part of the storytelling. And then what Steve's really envisioning is, okay, you have Staples Center, who has 270 plus events a year. We're not going to have that many, maybe around like 120 to 150. But how do we make it every event important and memorable? How, like, when you come to the arena, like that, we want you to feel like either you're part of the fan base or you are part of the fan base, but you're going to really leave with a memorable experience. And the other thing is I can say is, like, Steve wants people in their seats, right? So he doesn't want to have this suite that's like, oh, you're going to hang out over here. He wants you in the seat. Like, you should be excited to go to your seat to watch the game.
Yeah.
So that's the other piece, and why I was like, I think this whole content thing is we heard it here first, right? So I do think the Birdium experience can have this content element to it, which would allow teams to then sell that, right? Because that wouldn't be anything league owned at all. But I do believe that, at least at our arena, again, I can't say too much, but it's going to really be something like you've never seen before. You should, right? It's a $2 billion arena, so you should. And then the other thing is hopefully you're not going to be on your phone all the time, and you're going to be able to enjoy the experience because you're able to, because of all the elements that we're putting in there.
Yeah, that's awesome. So based on the success that you've had to date, what would be the 3 career insights that you would offer our audience today?
I think the one is going back to the network, tapping into that, leaning into that. Also, like, because the past year for me, I got to meet so many other new people, and realizing that everybody does want to help. And I think if you come in with a curious mind, it's not like, hey, I'm checking in to like keep tabs on you. Like, you should be constantly filling people and meeting people and just being curious with your network and seeing how they're doing and how can you help them as well.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Be curious. I love that.
And then you said 2 more.
I have to you one, I actually broke it down into 3, right?
Okay.
Network, everybody wants to help, and be curious. So, but if you want to keep coming, I'll take them.
The only thing I will say, something that I've learned, is that you may think you're going through like turmoil or you're going through a rough patch, but like, if you can embrace that and go through it, you will be 10 times more successful. That's something that I definitely learned, is just like embracing the suck, right? And just really, powering through it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. Well, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for your time. Congratulations again on your position with the Clippers. Good luck with the move to LA.
Yeah. It's a lot.
Great. Congratulations on the playoffs too. And I'm sure that we'll be rooting for you. But I'm crossing my fingers because there's plenty of people on here rooting for the Nats. Up 2-0 against the.
Well, hey, Clippers Nats like our finals. That's pretty nice. I'd be happy with that.
Yeah, I'd be happy with that too. So thank you everyone for watching. Moving to really nice weather all year round.